Face reality, people. Movies are dead. Games are dead. Narrative? Dead.
Media is nothing but neural trigger response and viral conditioning.
Wait, what are you two talking about?
All right. Just watched a movie called One Life. Right? One Life. Starring Sir Anthony Hopkins. And it's based on a real guy that saved over 600 children right before the war began, and they were shipping Jewish people off to fucking concentration camps. It, like, part of me wants to like outburst right now about how the government and like you would think, if anything, they'd be like, "Oh shit, get them on trains right now and send them all over." This motherfucker had to take donations, had to like take out newspaper ads, had to do interviews and shit just to raise money to do this, and then find families that will adopt them to make the papers quote unquote official. And it's like, it feels like that could have all been skipped past, but what else do you expect but incompetence when, I don't know, it feels like when groups of people get together, they just fuck it up. That's not an anti-government statement. I'm just saying, people just, it could be your Discord. People will fuck it up somehow. So, but, alright, to the movie. I thought it was alright. It's kind of straightforward. It's a straightforward, okay movie for me. Like, I know this is supposed to be based on a real guy. It is based on a real guy, I guess. But you're taking liberties anyways with emotional scenery, with emotional actions by the characters, with the music you choose, the actors you pick, on and so forth. It's not real. This is fiction. So if you're going to go into fiction with it, anyways, you might as well. I like the little tagline they had there about, like, it even applies to the title. Of like, okay, this is what I was thinking. With one life, you can, get the most out of it in regards to righteous actions. You can get the most out of it with just one life, right? And the scene where where Anthony Hopkins is sitting down with his friend or whatever, and they're talking about it's like, there's kind of no or it's difficult to get, I guess, help with all the, like, Anthony Hopkins is kind of saying like, oh, we can kind of skip past the whole governmental thing or structured thing around us, the society we live in, to do the right thing. Like, it's kind of simple to just do the right thing, but we allow social barriers to kind of stop us. And I thought, as soon as I saw that moment in the movie, I would have thought that thread would have, when it made its way through the entire movie, but it didn't. It was kind of just there and then gone. And yeah, that's what I did and would have attached to. Considering, I would hope the point of the movie is to enrich our lives in some way. Like, if this guy, this Winton, whatever his name is, if this is a real guy who's really like in that quote unquote heroic mentality, I would hope that he would like, well, fuck me. This is about, like, make sure, just add something that there's some sort of value for doing the right thing. That's the most important thing. Forget about me and my whole story thing. But they went for the heartwarming feels of, I guess the famous interview thing that you talked about, the famous talk show thing, where it's like, man, look at all these people you saved, and in the end credits they went over that as well. Like, oh, over 6,000 people lives are 6,000 people are alive today because of what he did in 1939 or whatever. I don't know. It's just me. me with art, with film, because it's going to be, there's always going to be, levels of abstraction, because this is not a documentary, even though documentaries have that too. I'm just saying, like, it's not a documentary. You're not hearing the actual guy talk. It's all of it is cameras and makeup and wardrobe and scenery and setting and all that shit. But it doesn't make it a bad movie. I'm just saying, like, what I would have wanted is to tell, like, well, what does it mean to be heroic? If you only have one life, what do you do? Like, that would have been my tagline. You only have one life, and you're presented with a situation where maybe you can do something that helps people. Fuck the government. Fuck the society we live in. Fuck the world we live in. As far as I'm not going to think on their level. I'm going to think what is the most righteous thing to do in the moment. They didn't really go that far into it, but it's still an okay movie for me. If anyone else is watching and have an opinion, I think Jesse was the only one watching. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if Anthony was, but
yeah. I was
good.
watching this, a lot of times on movies based on true stories, I do pay a lot of attention to what things are known to be true versus what things might have just been added in to make it make sense, but may have been made up.
Yeah.
In this case, I think the person's story was like what is known is such a large impact to so many people. I think that does carry a lot of weight for me to where it kind of overshadows a lot. And
Okay.
and that part that is known is at the end of the movie. So, because I've seen that video before of the real scene when you get surprised at the end. So
Okay.
so I was kind of already expecting that part, and I think it just carried a lot of weight of like, hey, this guy definitely saved so many people's lives that like he's a hero. So then I like a real hero like versus like other things that we see in movies. But then when I roll it back in time towards the beginning of the film, there's some things I didn't know, so it filled up some gaps. But I think I got the impression that the even the film creators didn't know a lot of things. It seemed like there was a lot of gaps that were just
Yeah.
filled in because they seemed unnatural, like people's responses and things. I don't think they had a lot of written things, or maybe they just didn't bother to like write those parts in.
Yeah.
So putting that together, I kind of was willing to forgive that early on, even though it stood out like, hey, that's weird. Like people's reactions are weird. Like no people know that there's troops coming in. Everybody's like just having regular brunch like normal. Nobody's like trying to get supplies, hide, move things around. Like the response seemed very unnatural, but we know that he did do this. So because he did this, I mean, you could fill in the gaps that the government wasn't doing that, and other people weren't doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, he people helped him, but he did something beyond what everybody else was doing. So
Or he kicked it
but
off, right?
that's
It's kind of
yeah,
what they made it
yeah,
seem like. Like we need to get these kids. Like they were saying in the beginning of the movie, right? Where he's like, we need to get them out of here, and people are like, oh, well, that's not really possible. You can't really do that. We don't have the funds to do this or that. And then he kind of kickstarted it by trying to get the funds and all that shit to get these kids out of there.
yeah,
But
yeah, and that part of it too. For me, I think there is. I don't know if it was trying to push that message or not, but I think there is a lesson from life there that like it looks like the structure of whether it's the government or whatever was happening in society, wasn't really facilitating helping. But his, like he took it upon himself to act, to figure things out. So I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
admirable, and like people could just do that.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting.
yeah, so I mean, in the end, I did like this, not completely for the story, but I think it connected to like, hey, this is the person that did that. So I found that impressive.
Okay. I mean, for me, like when you bring up like heroes and as far as like like we have like Die Hard, fucking John McClane, right? Like he's
Mhm.
kind of a hero in a movie, but it's like he's just guns blazing, fucking killing the bad guys, and then like a crime, like a over the top action crime thing, right? As opposed to like real heroism, right? Like that takes on it should take on a whole different look. Now for me, that's where I would have wanted to go. I don't want to rely on the action of it. Not I don't mean action like action movie. I mean action as like the things he did, right? That are like documented that he physically did, right? I don't want to rely on that and be like, well, he's a hero because he saved these kids. Like I don't want to rely on that. When it comes to something like cinema, to where you can tell deeper stories, I want more than that. I do. Like because it's going to be make believe anyways. Even if you try to follow the exact social story that happened, you're going to be missing out on something. It's going to be make believe anyways. So I'm like, I mean, like I want like this movie. Forgive me, Jesse. This movie had less of a story about what it means to be heroic than the fucking Dark Knight. It does. The goal, the backbone, the spine, whatever you want to call it. There's more of that in the fucking make believe Batman guy movies than this movie where somebody actually did something. So when you start explaining those, like what it, like the amount of courage, or like what it takes to do that, like where'd you come from to be able to do those things? Like if no offense to the actual real person, but like if he doesn't have that with him, then you're not really like a hero. I understand socially, like you see the results of something and you're like, oh, that's a hero. But if you don't see the underpinnings of it, you can't call it hero. I hope that makes sense. It's a little controversial, but I hope that makes sense. You can't just rely on, okay, John did this, John hero. You can't do that. For me, with any person in history, you cannot do that. You can't just go strictly on the action. You need to see the underpinnings of the action for it to become heroic for me. Because there's people probably lionized by history, like that are absolutely like built up beyond all grandeur in fucking history, but we don't see their we don't know their true motivations. Thus, for me, I will say like I can't call them like I don't know. I'll leave it as I don't know, as opposed to it's a glorified fucking hero, straight up, right there. Like we get to see some of the underpinnings of the person to recognize them as a hero, because there's people who have done things just for the camera, or just for this or just for that. Like I would fail to call that a hero. There's no way I call that a hero, right? If someone did something because the camera was on them, it's not a hero, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, if the underpinnings aren't there, it just looks like action reaction type of thing instead of well, what's the person's motives? And like I said, this is a movie, right? It's Anthony Hopkins is not the fucking guy who saved 669 fucking children from the fucking Holocaust, right? He's not the actual guy.
I just saw him do it.
Shut up. They're make believe. So, like, give us the underpinnings of what a hero is. If you're gonna showcase something like that, because the action is not enough. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. Even in real life, it's not enough. I'm just saying.
I think that's completely fair, and I definitely recognize that the film itself, the story, did not fill in a lot of those gaps. Like it did not show us his actual motivation at any point. So,
well, they can't.
So I did, add based on other things that I saw, which I'm saying the other things are kind of made up because we don't know the other people's reactions. I think they weren't really written in. Like they were almost like non-actors or all around. Like they weren't doing things. So I took that as, well, if everybody else is not doing something and he is, and to that degree, I'm taking what I'm seeing and saying like that. I think that's a huge amount of effort, but yes, it is a movie. So I don't know if in reality it could have been a whole bunch of people like all working together to do it, and he's like trying to get credit. Like that's possible. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
taking from what I saw, that's how I kind of like put it together for me.
Okay.
Like that he must have gone like far beyond based on what they were showing to like he could have just not done anything like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
That's how I was picturing it.
Well, for me, it's like why not lean into the mystery of it? Why not lean into like things that are kind of that on the surface look circumstantial, like maybe he said in an interview, or a personal friend telling a story about him, like, oh no, he he never wanted credit for it. He tried to hide about it. Like he was like he just wanted to do the right thing, and then like why not lean into that to give at the very least the optics of a heroic character, but they didn't even really do that. That's why I brought up that tagline of him and the friend at having lunch or whatever, and he's like bashfully like, I did what I was supposed to do. It wasn't about. It's not about getting fame for it or getting all this gratitude for it. Like, no, it's more about doing the right thing. Like they were kind of saying that during that little lunch exchange. I'm like, yo, lean into that. Yeah, we'll never know that this guy's dead already, bro. We won't know these things. We can't ask him. We can't question him. We can't poke and prod at him. Pause. We can't do that. But at the very lean into those questions that seemed like evidence towards like he was doing it because it's the right thing to do. Thus, it fucking blossoms as more of the hero character. I want give me more of that, even if it's kind of illusionary, because we can't tangibly grasp it because the guy's not alive anymore and we can't read his mind and all that shit. But still, give me the fucking shit around that idea, because then you can speak outside of your movie alone, right? The Holocaust, right? This horrible thing that happened. Well, guess what? There's more horrible things after that and more on the fucking way from today's world. So it's like, if you can do something in quote unquote one life, lean into that, please. Lean into it. But instead, they just took me for granted. They took the situation for granted. And they're just like, well, he did here's the action he did. Thus, you must automatically say, good guy, hero. If I had to guess, what the real person was possibly like, it probably is fucking heroic as shit. But they didn't, They need to go into that, embellish that shit, fucking build it up, make it large, showcase that this guy who lived to what 106 years old or some crazy shit like that. Like, make like he just used his one life and he did all this good. Make that be your fucking tagline. I'm begging you to do that. But you know, I don't know. I'm not a writer. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, no, I just
That was
I
me.
just
That's me
also
humble
remembered
bragging. Sorry. Good.
remembered the scene where they're in the train. Like, this is one of the scenes that doesn't make sense, right? Like, they're in the train and like, oh, okay, they see the kids and they ask for the paper, so they're looking at exactly how they're basically escaping right in front of them, and they're saying, okay, uh they got stamps.
Oh, the Nazi guys when they pulled the.
Yeah, they
Okay.
got stamps from the British, and it's like, why do they want to take them? It's like, oh, the British want them. Okay, then you could leave. So I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, but yeah. So that was an interesting scene where like they obviously made up that scene, and they didn't really do it in a good way. But
Well, they took the threat
I
for
would.
granted too. Go ahead.
Hmm?
They took the threat for granted as well. Of
Yeah,
like, well,
like
they're
we have
Nazis, and that's it.
to fill in that gap. So we have to,
Exactly.
like, from things that we know, they didn't really show us anything that was like, even in the reaction of the people, like, it's just very brief. Like, they didn't show us that there was a threat other than, like, let's get the kids out. So I mean, I guess it kind of wasn't about that, but it would have helped to show urgency on, like, either in people's reactions around, or
Yeah.
like his motivation. If it was just, I mean, I would have been fine if they made it up too, like that part.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I did this because of it, or he makes a statement to, like, why he has to do this, and it would have given it, I think, a little bit more power, because that helps you, like, mm, just know that it's not,
Yeah.
like, I guess it gives the whole story purpose.
Yeah.
So
It's
I think I'm drawing on my own purpose to figure it out, but it would have
exactly.
been nice to
Exactly.
understand his, in case it might have been different.
Eggs fucking exactly. That is it right there. Even with the not like we, if you're at the very least, I think the whole world knows, but let's just say you're from the West, right? And like you fucking know what the fuck World War II is. You know what Nazis are. You know what Hitler did. You know the Holocaust. You know all that shit, right? So even with all that knowledge, you can't just take it for granted and just say like, "Well, you guys know what that is, so I don't need to explain it all." Like no, you got to set a tone to show how, like, first of all, the drastic thing that the hero character is going up against. Because guess what? If this is even borderline close to the real person, his real shit was way more drastic than what we saw in the fucking movie, right? At the very least. So, like, you got, like, I'm not saying you got to go Michael Bay over the fucking top. All I'm saying is you got to build that, like, a little, like, the tension of it a lot more. Like you're saying, like, they're like we know the shit's going down, but no one's reacting to it until like the last second, and it's like it kind of feels it would end up feeling like forced. I would think, to me at least, right? To where, like, and you're also you're taking the audience, or the audience ends up having to take it as it is, of like, well, we know what the Nazis are and we know what they did, so when bully Nazi comes on the train and starts asking for papers, like, yeah, we know what Nazis are, so like they're doing that shit of just like like we just understand that this is bad, instead of building up this is bad, regardless of what the historical scenario is. Like even if we know about it already, you still have to do that in order to give some weight to all your characters and to the situation. More importantly, less to the characters, more to the situation that this dude's getting children out of there before this fucking storm happens. Right? Like that would have a lot more weight to it if they put a face more than the fucking mustache Hitler dude. Right? Fuck. Bless me. But yeah. Much more like I think films just get away with that now when it comes to World War II and Holocaust shit. You just show Hitler's mustache and that's enough to be like, see, look, be scared. Have tension now because it's that guy with the mustache. When that should be built. It should be built, in my opinion, to give some weight to it. And usually humanizing gives it more weight. But, I was kind of letting them go with that shit. I wasn't going to, like, hold them to, Americans versus Nazis in Normandy or some shit like that. Some beach in Normandy. I wasn't even going to hold them to that standard. But at the same time, it's like, you still have to add some weight to it. Some sense of like, holy fuck, these guys are fucking dangerous. They're really dangerous. And this is like drastically important. But not much time was actually spent on that. Right? He was there in the camp, not the camp, like the ghettos or whatever, giving the kids chocolate and shit. He's like, oh fuck, look at all these kids. We gotta get them out of here. And then all of a sudden he's back in England, like, raising money and shit to get him out of there.
Yeah, the movie starts like that. Like it's like it didn't have a backstory. It's just like
you just say Holocaust and that's it. That's all you gotta do, apparently. Crazy. But yeah. Right. Do you have a grade for this movie?
No, I don't do that.
Do you recommend the movie if you don't have a grade?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I recommend the there's some things, sometimes some topics I think that are just good to spread. So yeah, so I'm being somewhat forgiving on the story thing, knowing that there's gaps, but yeah, so I recommend it.
Okay. I also recommend, but I recommend a one-time watch, and that is it. No more required, because they need to give those underpinnings, and if that's missing, then what am I, fuck, what was that scene? Oh, I need to go rewatch that. What's this? What's that? If that element is not there to it, it's just it's a basic story, I guess, of a real guy. And it's like, okay. But like, yeah, go watch it. If you want to go watch it, go watch it. It's not a bad movie at all. But yeah, go watch it. As far as for historical learning of something, I mean, the point is to understand. Once again, if I rewrote the movie, I'm like, okay, the tagline is like, what could you do with one life? This would not be my first recommendation for something like that at all. But when it gets closer to the world we live in, I guess, like on the surface, right, aesthetically and begin the movie with based on a true story. Like, yeah, sure. I would say, hey man, go look up the real dude instead of this shit. That's personally what I would say. But yeah, sure. Yeah, go watch it. There's to me, there's no Michael Bay, Expendables 4, Fast and Furious fucking harm watching this movie. Kevin Hart fucking left harm watching this movie. So yeah, Go check it out. As far as my score goes, give it like a 7.6, 7.6 as a movie. Yeah, 7.6. It's above average, but it's not that far above average. It's borderline average. It's alright. I would have rather seen a fucking documentary on the guy where we get archival fucking interviews and shit like that instead of the movie itself. Just my opinion. There you go. All right. There's our review of One Life, starring Anthony Hopkins.